What's up, Amazon sellers? Lower your expectations. I'm flying solo today. Happy Sunday! Thanks to all of you who are tuning in. Chris is spending time with his family. The CG Chris. So we're gonna let him. My kids are in a sugar coma, so I got nothing better to do. So I figured I'd jump on here and just chat it up for a little bit. Um, Not really sure. Don't expect a lot of numbers, right? If you are here, if you're spending your Sunday with me, I certainly do appreciate it. It's good to see you. I did pull up some news. I got some information to share with you. I can answer any questions that you may have or you want to throw out there. As always, when I fly solo, I suggest save the technical questions for when Mr. Grant is here. But if you want to talk about business, you want to try to reason some stuff out, or throw some theories around, I'm totally willing to chop it up with you. So go ahead and add those in the chat. I'm going to go over a couple things that I wanted to talk to you about, and then we'll get to the questions. Hey, good to see you. I'm going to go with your middle name, Ben, and your display name. Thanks for hanging out. So I hope you guys are having a happy Easter to all that celebrate that. Happy 420 to those that celebrate that. One way or another, whether you celebrate one or the other or both, the Easter candy is in big trouble one way or another, right? And then tomorrow, happy random drug test day if you celebrate that. So I hope you're all having a good day. I do have some good news. It's a little bit speculative. Yeah. Hey, Andrew. Yeah. I figured I'd give it a try solo. I'm going to fumble through this. This is not going to be nearly the level of polish that you are used to. I'll ask for a little bit of a grace. But when I get to the news that I want to share with you, it'll be worth it suffering through the poor production value that I'm about to offer you on the show. So, hey, Jerry, good to see you, man. Happy Easter. Happy Sunday. So, kind of set the table with an appetizer. I guess we're supposed to do a sponsor, right? The sponsor, as it should continue to be, is, of course, Seller 365. I am not sure if there are show notes. I have no idea what are in the show notes. So if below the video or somewhere around the video is not a link, that website is getseller365.com. What is it? It's three Colts bundling everything together, all of their tools. There's 10 at least for one low price. And I don't have a polished, commercial for you. But if you're considering it, you absolutely should. I just saw with the tax, it's like $80 came out the last time I had paid for tactical arbitrage. That'll drop to $69, and then I'll get Inventory Lab for free, which I also pay for. You get Feedback Whiz alerts, which will actually alert you. They'll send you an email if anything changes with your Amazon listings, which is incredibly valuable. You get additional accounting, Inventory Labs accounting, and a whole slew of tools. So if you are interested, it's an incredible deal. Like, take out any bias I may have. I don't get any affiliate commissions for saying so. It just flat out is a solid deal. And I'm flying solo, so sponsor number 2 is OA Leads 24/7. If you want a weekend lead list, I do have a handful of openings that just popped up. So you can go to oaleads247.com if you want some weekend leads or you're looking for a part-time list. That's what I was doing earlier today on my Easter morning. Was finishing up today's list. So you can check those out. So some news that I want to cover with you. Kind of a little bit of a softball first. I did notice in the world of the stores that we source from, there are a couple of news bits that I wanted to share with you. The first one, Vitamin Shop, is being sold to private equity. They're being sold for $195 million. to private equity firms Kingswood Capital Management and Performance Investment Partners. The total deal is $193.5 million. The current owner, Franchise Group, filed for bankruptcy. So the sale is expected to close around May 15th, and the new owners plan to invest in the company's growth and digital improvements. So I do hope that Vitamin Shop stays viable, just from a personal standpoint, because I think it's a pretty good source. I don't know if you guys have sourced from there, but they are sneaky good, in my opinion. They have several BOGOs. Any store that is willing to do buy one, get one, either free or 50% off, where you can stack another 20%. It almost doesn't matter if they're expensive at regular retail prices, right? Give me a BOGO and stack 20% on top of that, and I'm going to be making some money on some products somewhere along the line. So fingers crossed that the Vitamin Shop, that this goes smoothly and Vitamin Shop sticks around. They're also good if you have them around you. I do. I'm not sure how much territory they cover across the country, but it's a good opportunity for BOPUS. If you do any of that, buy online, pick up in store. That's a nice way to get some stuff that maybe have sold out or limited supply, clearance items and whatnot. So yeah, so the Vitamin Shop, they're selling. Hopefully that's good. The other, on the flip side, surprising news, especially in the brick and mortar arena, Barnes & Noble plans to open 60 new stores this year, which I think is amazing, especially considering 90+% of the news that we hear about brick and mortar retail stores is negative, whether it's sales or bankruptcies or store closures or whatnot. So this is actually some surprising good news on the retail front. Barnes & Noble plans to open over 60 new stores in 2025 after successfully launching 57 new locations last year. The company's focused on returning to familiar areas and engaging local booksellers to enhance its community presence. The growth comes as Barnes & Noble becomes the leading big book retailer in the U.S. after industry changes. So pretty interesting. Another, if you're not hip to Barnes & Noble, it's another sneaky good sourcing place. And the cool thing, and actually, in my opinion, the program where whatever their pro program is, I want to say it's like $30 a year or something like that, but it gives you another 10% off across the board. And from my experience, tell me if you've had a different experience. I'm interested in that. But they're fairly reseller friendly. So, and then you throw an extra 10% off, and they seem to carry a unique line. It's kind of one of those stores that has a little bit of a different inventory profile. There are several times where I'm sourcing and I'll come across a product and it's Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I don't know whether it's an exclusive deal for Barnes & Noble if they're active on that front, or whether they just kind of have their own drummer as far as the inventory that they stock. So Barnes & Noble, 60 new stores and pushing 120 over the 2-year period. So I was pleasantly surprised about that because I do like Barnes & Noble. So big news. We're 10 minutes in, so this is the important thing. This is the main reason that I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys. I tweeted about it last night. And now there's nothing official. This is just observational on my part. However, I know for a fact that over the last 36 hours of me sourcing, I have had brands that I've sold in years past. And then all of a sudden we're going through a weird regating. Amazon seems like they're changing stuff on the back end. A bunch of stuff got regated. Things that we knew we could sell or have sold in the past. Big news, the regatings. Everybody's grumbling about it, rightfully so. I'm not picking on you if you did, or you are vocal about it. It is very upsetting. That's just a fact. However, over the last 36 hours, I've had 5 brands that I could sell and have sold previously. I know for a fact I've sold them in years past. They lit up red on my rev seller or whatever you use to check your permissions. They turned red after. I know for a fact I've sold this brand. It shows up red. That's the frustrating part, right? That's what everybody's talking about. However, now when I click to check and see if I can request approval, it is the official term, I'll click the button and I am getting auto ungated. I'm getting approved. I'm getting that message that says congratulations based on your seller history or whatever their wordage is. I am getting approved to sell these brands again. So it happened Friday night twice, but I hadn't identified the pattern yet. So I was like, oh, okay, lucky, whatever. I didn't think much of it. But then yesterday, when I continued my sourcing, that it happened more. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute here. You hit the third one, you get 2 Friday night, you get your third on Saturday, and it's like, okay, this might be something. And then I got a 4th brand, and then I got a 5th brand. And I didn't buy them, and I didn't put any of these on the lead list. So I will share it with you if you want to check yourself. I don't remember the 2 on Friday, right? Because I didn't think to mark it down in my head. But the latest brand that I had was Play Mobile, the kids' toy brand. I know for a fact I'd sold that. It lit up red. I clicked it and I was approved to sell it again. And now it's green. It's good to go. The other brand. Oh man, see, now I'm drawing a blank. Studio Spotlight's on, and now I'm okay. So I got Play Mobile. Where'd it go? The other one, American Standard, right? The plumbing equipment manufacturer. I know I've sold them in the past. They got regated, and as of yesterday, I am approved to sell them again. And the other brand is, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Lansinoh, Lansinoh. They are a baby product brand. They have some pretty popular, a couple different variations of baby bottles that are or were profitable on Amazon. I know I sold them in the past. I think Target had some that were easily found if you might have sourced those. And then there's some other sites that put this brand on sale and seems to be pretty popular. I know it's sold in the past, lit up red, and now I'm approved to sell it again. So, and I believe I didn't mark it down, but I think even as I was sourcing things I was putting on my sheet that were profitable, even if it was lit up red, I'll still put it on the sheet, and whether I click auto approval or not. I was actually going back to it this morning, and they're lit up green now. So it may be in your best interest to start rechecking some stuff. If there were some brands that really made you gnash your teeth, that you knew for a fact, and it really made you angry when they were lit up red. I think it's probably worth your time to go in and check those. Check if you're approved or not. Restart an application, click the red button, request approval. You might be pleasantly surprised. And I'd love to hear if it works. Of course, if you experience the same thing that I seem to be experiencing, please share it with us. Because I want to know. It's like you start kind of questioning yourself. It's like, all right, I'm pretty sure this is something now. So if you can give me any kind of confirmation in your own experience, that'd be great. Hey, Matthew, how you doing? Happy Easter, man. Jerry, same thing is happening with Profit Bandit app. Shows restricted, but auto ungates when listed in Seller Central. Yeah, great. That's awesome news. So, boy, if this is This is the fixing of the glitch. It's going to make a lot of us very, very happy. So, all right. So what else we got? I have to share this with you. It's it's only like vaguely related to selling, but there was a USA Today article, and it said the question in the article, the headline was, "Can you pass a 7-question quiz on financial literacy?" Most Americans could not, right? So, um, I'm always interested in just how I don't know. I don't want to be insulting on this Easter Sunday, but I'm always interested in getting some sort of like tangible reading or quiz reports. But a recent quiz on financial literacy showed that many Americans struggle with basic concepts like inflation and interest rates. Only 27% of participants answered at least 5 out of 7 questions correctly, highlighting the significant gap in financial education. Experts believe improving financial literacy is essential to help consumers avoid debt and make better investment choices. Now, so you may be saying, okay, only 27% could answer 5 out of the 7 correctly. And if you're anything like me, you're wondering what the questions were like, right? And fortunately, this USA Today article actually gave some of the questions that were asked, right? So the inflation question, I'll share that with you. It said, imagine that the interest rate on your savings account was 1% per year and inflation was 2% per year. After 1 year, how much would you be able to buy with the money in this account? Now, and it's a multiple choice question, this quiz, right? And here are the options. You could choose more than today, exactly the same, less than today, or don't know. Now, the answer, of course, is less than today. However, only 58% of respondents got that question correct, right? So, and then I'm not going to go through exactly everything, but I'll give you a sampling of a couple more. And it says, like one of them was, suppose you owe $1,000 on a loan, and the interest rate you are charged is 20% per year, compounded annually, right? If you didn't pay anything off at this interest rate, how many years would it take for the amount you owe to double? Right. So you just $1,000 principal, 20% interest rate compounding annually. They offered answers of less than 2 years, 2 to 4 years, 5 to 9 years, 10 or more years, and then apparently just the standing don't know option. Correct answer to that is 2 to 4 years, and 3 in 10, about 30% of respondents were able to get that right. And there's one more basic question. They did ask, buying a single company stock is usually safer than a mutual fund. Numbers are pretty low on that. But the real interesting one, they did ask, if interest rates rise, what will typically happen to bond prices? Will they rise, fall, stay the same, or there's no relationship between the two? So, and that was only 27% of the quiz takers knew that there was an inverse relationship to interest rates and bond yields. So, all right. So, and why do I bring that up? Because I think it was during last Monday's sourcing session. I ended up telling the story of when I was working at the car lot. I worked at a buy here, pay here car lot, and I'm not proud of it. Don't think I am. It's not it's not on the highlight reel of my professional career, but it's astounding what people don't know, and there's something to be said about, as business owners, selling, and running an inventory based business, selling to customers. And I love it. It's Chris Grant's grandfather's quote, but I love it as if it was from my own family. He always talks about not selling out of your own pocket. So I think there's something to be said about being careful to not give too much credit or too little credit to your customers. But and the story I told them was one of my favorite stories on the car lot. There was this nurse. She was a short little person, fiery as all get out, right? And she needed a car. She had bad credit, made bad decisions, didn't pay her bills, all that stuff. So, in other words, she was perfect for this car lot that I worked for. Happy Easter, Kevin. Thanks for popping in. So she needed wheels. She was an STNA, so it was a lot of in-home stuff. So it was really important to her that she was mobile. She had reliable transportation. So she had her eyes on this little Nissan, good on gas. It was like a Sentra or something like that we had on the lot. And she test drove it, which is always a very big step towards closing the deal. If you didn't know that. She loved it. She came back. She loved it. She parked it. She's all right. Let's talk about the numbers or something. Let's see if we can get this done. I said, yeah, sure. So I ran the numbers, and I wasn't a very good salesman because I don't I'd let you walk away from a bad deal, just to keep a clear conscience as much as possible. So anyway, so at a buy here, pay here, the rates are terrible. The payments are terrible, so it's not my favorite part, when I actually reveal what the numbers were going to be. So, and remember, she's a very fiery little woman. So we, and one of the tricks of buy here, pay here is you get, the payments were broken up per pay period. So it wasn't a monthly payment. It was a bi-weekly payment. Every 2 days or every 2 weeks on your payday, this is what your payment will be. So that's how we broke it up to make it go down a little bit easier, right? So I slid the paperwork, and this wasn't even one of the worst deals on the lot, but it was going to be $160 every 2 weeks, right? And so I showed her that, and I slid her the paperwork. I said it'd be $160 every 2 weeks. She lost her mind, right? She 160 every 2 weeks. You got to be out of your mind, Bobby, right? She just loses her mind. And at that point, that's when to the chagrin of my bosses who wanted me to close every deal, that's when I started saying, okay, she knows it's not a good deal. That's fine. And she actually said to me, she goes, I can go down the street and there's the same car. I could get that for $250 a month and blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, and it wasn't a sales tactic, even though sometimes they'll do this as a tactic. But I said, look, if you can go get it for $250, you should do that. That's a better financial move, and that was honest advice. And, and so she's just, the steam's kind of letting off out of her ears and whatnot. And she calms down and she goes, 160 every 2 weeks. She goes, and then she stops and she looks at me and she goes, what would it be weekly? And at that point, I kind of looked around for the hidden camera, thinking this was a trick or a prank or something. And I said, well, it would be $80 a week. And she goes, 80 a week. She goes, yeah, I can do that. Let's do that. And she signed the paperwork, and she talked herself into it by chopping it up the way she needed to hear it. But it's just funny how 160 every 2 weeks was just going on a rant. And, that was an enraging number, but $80 a week was perfectly fine. So that reading this article actually made me think of that. And I don't feel so bad about selling 2 packs of wheat thins for $22 during the pandemic. So after reading stuff like that. So it's always interesting to get to know your customer base a little bit better. So I don't know about you, but all right. So what do we got? Let me know if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about. I am willing to hang out for a while. We don't have any big plans. So let's see, Matt, not sure if you talked about this yet. Let me pop this up here. Not sure if you talked about this yet, but did you see on Twitter there was a post from someone about possibly a class action lawsuit against Amazon? I don't think I saw this most recent one. I've seen other ones like it. Um, and there's part two. I think they mentioned the law firm recently won a big case against a bank, so they have the money to do so. Yeah, this pops up. If you depending on who you follow on Twitter, there are people that are sharing a lot of information, retweeting people who have been treated unfairly. You'll see a lot of stories from certain accounts of people. They'll not only retweet, but they'll start tagging Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump, and there's a couple other that are the standard people to be tagged in posts like that. Yeah, anytime there's class action, I gloss over that. I don't pay a lot of attention to it. Because there's not really a lot that comes from it. Usually when you're dealing with a third party network of sellers like Amazon does, typically stuff like the arbitration clause offers quite a bit of protection to squash anything popping up like that. So, but that's not to say that it isn't a positive, because it certainly is awareness of the discomfort that some of these sellers are going through, and the disconnect between the seller and what the seller has to offer, and the treatment that Amazon is providing for those sellers. So not surprising. I think we've all, if you've been around long enough, a lot of us have seen that movie before. So it's something I won't pay a lot of attention to it, but I'm not going to say that I'll completely ignore it either. They're always interesting to watch how it plays out and what's said. Even if nothing comes about it. Even if it's even say there's even traction and it ends up getting settled or something like that. It's always interesting to listen and try to read between the lines of the statements that are made as things like this progress. So. What do we got? Jerry. Yeah, exactly, Jerry. Considering the terms of service, yeah, they usually built in protections. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so sellers don't have many options in terms of marketplaces considering the traffic. Yeah, you know what? I mean, that's the root of the defense that I usually give for Amazon. There's this whole sentiment. People are getting fed up, and people are sick of the fees, and they think they've crossed a line, and they're now too high, or they think Section 3, that was very upsetting. And a lot of people still hold a grudge over that. And there's a whole wave of sellers that have decided that Walmart is a better place for them to go. I've made it known. I don't think it's a bad opportunity. If you're going to go into Walmart and you are going to really dig in and try to turn some serious volume on Walmart, there's probably an opportunity for you. Things could go very well. I'd have a hard time arguing. Anybody would have a hard time arguing, because you don't really know. It's the good old days until they're gone, right? But you think about the people who have been selling on Amazon, like Chris Grant, who's been double digit years, pushing 12 or possibly 15 or something like that. You hear these stories from these seasoned sellers on how different it was, and our memories, when we kind of look back, we tend to have a bit of a rosier view in our memories. So there's a whole lot of stuff as examples of things that would appear to be easier. We don't tend to bring up the things that were more difficult. The fact that there was only a fraction of the data available, and sales ranks, history, all of that stuff was abbreviated, whether simply being in the past or the fact that the profile of the tools that were available to help us sell on Amazon weren't nearly as mature as they are now. Um, yeah, so you sit there and you're frustrated, and if you let emotions get the better of you, you say, hey, that's it. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home, and I'm going to go over to Walmart. And you see a whole lot of people on social media talking it up, and they're happy, they're relieved to be away from Amazon, and life is better. They're going to tell you, maybe different than the truth, but they're going to tell you on social media that the grass is greener. What a relief! Oh, life is good again, over on Walmart. So, but I try to. I got in a conversation on Twitter. I posted a meme, and it was not really derogatory, but it was like, Walmart has its own challenges. Okay, I mean, I'm not going to say Amazon doesn't suck. There's plenty of stuff about Amazon that sucks. But guess what? Walmart has its own suck, right? And so we kind of, the emotions distort the comparison. And I'm of the opinion that it's probably about the same. On the scale, it would probably even be pretty darn close to even. And if you take the emotion out and you look at it objectively, you say, well, there's so much red tape, there's so much BS to deal with on Amazon. But then you flip to the other side and you really take a hard look at Walmart. There's not a lot of sales data. The sales history only goes back so far. Repricing is basically non-existent or very much in its infancy. And those factors make sourcing and sell-through more difficult, and way more difficult than on Amazon. And then you throw in the fact that Walmart is 1/50th the size as far as a marketplace that Amazon is, so that's an important perspective. I'm not trying to talk anybody into one direction or not. I'm not saying you're stupid for going to Walmart. You should stay on Amazon. You know, what we need to do, here's the kicker. The changes that Amazon makes, the things that Walmart does, and the things that we do in our response, being forced to adapt, the number one goal as business owners, we have to do what's best for our business. Amazon's doing what's best for them. Walmart's going to do what's best for them. And we need to do what's best for us. And your what's best is probably going to look different than my what's best for my business. And that's okay. I'm not judging either way. However, that just makes looking at things objectively that much more important. It makes taking the emotion out of it that much more important. The people just get spicy, and I understand it's upsetting, but when you put your CEO hat on, because you are the CEO of your business, regardless of how you think of it, you need to, maybe that's where you're at, where you need to move it from side hustle to you are a business owner. If you put that business owner hat on, you really need to stay objective about things. So that's why I post some stuff like that, where it looks like maybe it's anti-Walmart. I know how it could be seen and taken that way, but it's really, it's an effort to kind of shake the tree and make sure we're centered, make sure we're not drifting too far in one direction or the other. So, but that's, to your point, the marketplace size. That is I have that weighted so heavily, if I ever consider the pros and cons or Amazon versus Walmart, the size of the marketplace is such a huge advantage. So, all right. Hey, Mr. Grant, saying I appreciate you hanging out. Don't get yelled at when you're supposed to be doing family Easter stuff, right? But he makes a good point. Class action lawsuits and rich lawyers. Um, yeah, and typically do very little for the people being represented. Um, unless you're really into claiming your $8.70 class action check. When you ever get those in the mail just randomly, like, hey, you may be entitled to settlement funds, and then it's some ridiculous number. It's barely worth the postage. All right, what else do we got? Jab, how do I keep my profits inventory organized while doing OA? Well, it's a pretty broad question. At the top of the show, we talked about Seller 365. They'll have tools not only to help you on the OA side as far as like sourcing, but they can also help with the inventory organization and give you a view of what profits are. But you're going to want some sort of software. And the information that I don't have, Jab, is how far along you are, to what degree, and what experience level you are in your Amazon selling journey. It may be a type of thing where new sellers can probably get away with inventory labs, lab. Sorry, I need to. I put an S on Aldi too when I talk about it, so I don't know why I'm so liberal with my S's. I apologize. Inventory Lab, that's an inventory management software. Another option that I've seen several people say they like is Seller Board. So those are kind of, as far as I understand it, those are inventory management systems. I mean, Inventory Lab I know it is. I'm taking an educated guess on Seller Board. I've never actually used it, but I know people like it. So you'll want a software like that. From there, it depends on your record keeping preferences. If you have some serious numbers going, it may be worthwhile to look into something like QuickBooks, and or professional services, like a bookkeeper or a CPA. I'm good friends with a CPA, and he kind of we're able to have conversations to where we can just kind of speak to each other as friends, and it's like, okay, this is what's going on, what do you think? And so we can do kind of check-ins like that. So if you have a relationship with a professional, take advantage of that. So, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of options, but you'll probably want to look into software somewhere along the line, or a couple pieces of software maybe. Jerry, are you adding new ASINs to your business every day? Yeah. Yes, I am. I am sourcing all the time. I don't, yeah, every day. I can't think of a time where I didn't source something. And I'm not, I'm not digging deep into replens. I'm not going back over stuff that I've already bought before, and I'm just looking to replenish. Yeah, I'm constantly scouting new ASINs. Do I have a set formula for doing it? No, I don't even have a set process, like a weekly process. I'm very much all over the board. Um, and that's probably a detriment. I recognize that. I jump around, and I kind of, I'll tell myself, and I don't know if this is true or not, or whether I'm just kind of BSing, buying my own BS, but I kind of try to play what's hot, like in the sports metaphors. You kind of in football they talk about when you have the running back by committee, they'll kind of play the hot hand. Somebody who's running the ball well, they'll tend to get more reps and get more carries, because they're the hot hand. That's kind of how I approach my sourcing, because I'll play favorites, lately I've been digging into Storefront Stalker Pro a lot lately. Because it's just if you watch on Monday nights at all, you can watch me actually source on Storefront Stalker Pro in the FBA Today Facebook group, if you're interested. But I find so much so quickly, and I was so with my VAs. My VAs had a bad week this week, and they had days off for Easter week, right? So it was extra bad. So I was left to my own devices even more so. I didn't have their starting points to kind of start with. And this morning was a little bit. I woke up today a little bit with a little bit of anxiety because I didn't have as many prospective leads because of my Sunday list has to be out by noon, right? So I actually set an alarm on the weekends to make sure I have enough time to get the leads together. And I was kind of anxious about it. I was like, man, I had less than I normally do going into a Sunday morning, Um, so I was digging around for a while. I was kind of screwing around some different stuff, and I didn't feel like I was catching up and getting to where I needed to be. And I'm watching the clock the whole time. And sure enough, I opened up Storefront Stalker Pro. I said, you know what? I'm just going to go to the stores that I know are arbitrage sellers, that I'm really, really pretty sure. Not 100%. I don't know who they are, but ended up looking it up, and I found the last two on today's list that I sent out to my subscribers were absolute bangers. The one's a little bit of a depressed price. It's selling for $89. Typically sells $99 most of the time. I found it for like less than $60. So it was just this real pretty like $16 profit per unit, low 30% ROI, and minimal seller traffic. Yeah, I mean it was beautiful. And then I ended up finding another one too, and I was like, God, every time I do it, I'm like, why don't I use this tool more often? So, but I only bring that up to say that now I'm going to be on a Storefront Stalker Pro kick, right? And and then I'll go back to TA. I'll find one of my sites that you can stack coupon codes. I'll go on a kick there, and I'll have a couple days where I'm just sourcing those, and yeah, and then I'll realize that it's been a really long time since I've checked my lead list that I subscribe to. So I'll go in there and I'll end up rabbit trailing for a really long time, and I'm like, oh, I should do this more often. Like that's what I end up telling myself every time. It's like when I go down these tangents. I mean, they're profitable tangents because I'm only sticking with it because it's working, right? But I always end at some point. I always tell myself like, oh, you should do this more often. It's like, so it's this silly little ADD like game that I play, where I just kind of focus in bursts. So, but no process. What do you, Jerry? Tell me why you ask about the formula. That seems to indicate that you're looking for a formula yourself, or you're looking for some sort of framework. Let me know what issues you're having, and maybe I can offer a perspective that'll help. Or anyone else, if anybody else has a process that you really, really like and that works for you, feel free to share. All right, let's see what else is in the comments. And if you have anything, feel free to pop it in there. We'll go for at least another 15 minutes. All right. It would be nice to see some change in the right direction. Deep down, I'm hoping they can use AI agents to optimize some processes to then have more control over the important tasks. Yeah, you know what? It does seem. I think like this whole regating thing. I said it right from the beginning, and what struck me was that it very much felt like a new process that they were working the kinks out of, right? Um, and I thought I thought this theory, and I continue to like the theory. Uh, think about the Section 3s that went through in Q4. Amazon collected a ton of data as they were verifying their third-party sellers' supply chains. I don't think Amazon would just let that data go away. I don't think that's in the recycling bin after they got through. Well, they're not done. I realize some people are starting to get round 2 Section 3s, but the bulk of it seems to be done through Q4. They collected a ton of data, and it's not a tinfoil hat thing. I don't think they did that so that they could find sources for their own relationships and own wholesale accounts and stuff like that. That's not where I'm going with that. I think that I think they have us ranked as sellers. I think there are degrees of risk that they've classified us with. I think that they probably graded the quality of the documentation that we provided to them as we verified our supply chains. And I think they probably flagged us. I think it's because I would imagine it's similar to the gating requirements that they have on the back end. Not what they publish, but I think on the back end, because there are certain times where if something happens in my account health, I'll lose the whatever amount of points depending on repeat violations and all that stuff. But I've dropped below a certain level, and I don't know what it is. They don't tell us, but I've lost certain brands, right? That's how I lost Neutrogena, and I've still never gotten it back. But it happened right around the time that I was fighting something on my account health, and it was a big one. I took at least 24-point hit on my account health score. And I don't know if it's score based. I don't know if it's profile or whether it's a quantity. I don't know if it's a number of violations or something like that. But there's some sort of trigger that dropped me below some sort of tier. And I ended up losing Neutrogena and a couple other brands that I sold before and have never been able to get back. I lost Neutrogena probably 2 years ago. So I'm convinced that that's how that's set up. It's on the back end or something like that. Similar to, and think of it as like a voice of the customer, right? They have that grading scale. They have it increases and decreases by severity. I don't understand why Amazon wouldn't do that same thing, since they're into data collection systems and grades given out based on the data that they collect. I'd be shocked if they didn't have something like that. So I think that they're putting that in place. I think that they are they're getting more granular than they show us on the front end with how they assess us, and in regards to who's allowed to sell what and whatnot. So I think they put it in place. It probably cast too wide of a net. And then if what I talked about earlier, where they're kind of loosening back up and we're going to start getting auto approved for stuff, I think that's them working out the kinks. And as I said all that out loud, I remember that I said no tinfoil hat, but that sure sounded that had a little tinny resonance to it, didn't it? But yeah, that's my theory at least. So, Jab, how do I sell more on Walmart? Tools are lacking. How do I find winning price? That's the big mystery. That's and I'll be upfront. I don't know the first thing about how to sell anything on Walmart, let alone more. I haven't dipped my toe into that yet, but that harkens back to what I was saying earlier about Amazon versus Walmart. The thing you don't realize, maybe if you're a newer seller and you hear these stories about, how easy it was for the sellers that have been in the game for 10 years or more, how easy it was to get ungated and stuff like that. The part we neglect to think about is that they didn't have that much data either. Yeah, there were Amazon sellers selling on Amazon before Keepa came around. I don't even know what that looks like. That's basically like before cars. That's like somebody telling me, no, horseback was the only way that we got around. That's the equivalent. I don't know what that world would look like. I can't even envision it. Um, that's how reliant I am on Keepa and how much of a staple it is to my sourcing um, skill set. So that's the issue. That's what I was saying earlier. When the people that decide that Walmart is an edge, Walmart is a big blue ocean, even though it's a smaller marketplace. They think that the ratio of uh, blue ocean to less competition is advantageous for them, and they decide to go 100% the Walmart direction. They have to figure out, they're basically sourcing blind. We've had people on the podcast, and we've interviewed Walmart sellers, and a couple of them, a couple different episodes on Walmart, and there's a lot of testing products. I remember at one point, I was led to believe at the end of the interview that it was a matter of kind of just testing it, and the tests that go well are the things that you start buying and start stocking your store with. Now, I know things are changing. I know people, software providers and tools and services and whatnot are kind of hustling to get more available to Walmart sellers. So I imagine that's a very fluid situation. And it may have changed quite drastically in just a matter of months since we last talked to somebody selling on Walmart. So, yeah, I imagine statements and the landscape's going to change all the time. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what's out there, and whatever you find, I think in the long run, you're going to have to learn how to source at a with much less data than you have on Amazon. I think it's going to be that way for a long time, even as new stuff comes on the market. So, but that's a big question as you consider moving to Walmart. However, that said, how about this for a segue? Chris Grant is offering their very first. It's their inaugural launch of their. I don't know if it's a Walmart challenge. I don't remember the actual title. I apologize. But Chris Grant, if you're familiar with his educational tools, he has partnered with Sarah, who is big into Walmart, and she's very active. She seems to have a great relationship with Walmart. She also seems to have a heck of a lot of success on Walmart. We have an interview with her on the podcast. That she's one of the Walmart experts that we interviewed that I referred to with your last question, Jab. She is going to be running, or at least co-hosting, co-running the Walmart course that's coming up. They've actually started to talk about it. They're rolling out some of the promo materials and getting people ready for that. So yeah, that's going to be real exciting. So I know there are a lot of people looking at Walmart, so if you're interested, but you have a similar question, like Jab just said, like how, there's just not as much data. Like, how do you do this? If it's confusing and you feel like you're kind of feeling around in the dark, you should probably seriously consider this Walmart course coming up from Chris Grant in the OA Challenge. And if you know Chris, he always delivers. You always get more than your money's worth to a multiple degree. So yeah, that's going to be good stuff. Oh, look at that. See, this is just me fumbling through. Like, I'm not keeping an eye. Chris is already on this. I mean, Chris, you're gonna have to jump in the studio if you keep cleaning up my messes in the comment section like this. So here we go. Hopefully, again, I'm sorry, I don't know what's in the show notes underneath on the YouTube video or whatnot. Hopefully this link is in there. If not, it will be soon. And if it's not there now, it's right here. Go to oachallenge.com/Walmart-challenge-waitlist. All right. So that's the OA challenge that we all know and love, that we can't get enough of, that we keep going back to. Now this is the Walmart edition. So And I tell you what, if you heard us talk about, the OG OA challengers that were on the very first OA challenge Amazon edition years ago, that it's definitely a positive to be on the ground floor through the very first run of something like this. So this is your ground floor for the Walmart edition. So don't hesitate. Tikkun Human. Hi, what is a healthy net profit margin percentage for online arbitrage? I'm an international seller. Why? I'm not sure. I don't know if what region or what country you're in. I'm not sure how much that changes. Net profit margin and determining what's healthy. This is a really tough question. It's it's a question that a lot of sellers want to know, but that doesn't make it any easier to answer. Um, there's just not enough input to give you a good answer. I don't know what you're spending. I don't know what your monthly nut is. Um, and there are people that run very, very lean operations, and healthy is going to be a much lower number than people who who spend $1,000 on lead lists every single month, have every single tool. There are sellers out there that I'm sure are spending thousands of dollars just in overhead. Um, you know, certain sellers have warehouses, certain sellers have regular help that they employ, whether it be, physical preppers that come to their house or their warehouse. There's prep center costs. Other people have prep centers. Some sellers have more than one prep center. Me, so it's and this feels and it's going to start feeling like a cop out, and I apologize for that, but um, it leads us to the answer that really need to know your numbers. You need to know what you're spending. You need to know what your monthly nut is. You need to know what you need to cover to become profitable, and then from there, you need to build out what your profit number is going to be. Are you paying yourself, or are you pumping all the profits back into your store because you're in a scaling period of that's gonna make the answer very wildly. I don't know which way direction I wanted to go with that, but you know what I mean. So unfortunately, that's a really tough number, but I'm not sure you really need to know the exact number right away. Um, there is a certain point where if you're a newer seller, I would argue that after you've accounted for all of your expenses and absolutely everything, including your next round of inventory, any positive number is healthy. Is it ideal? I don't know. That's a different question. But positive numbers are healthy. And in certain circumstances, depending on what you're looking at and what you've accounted for, if you've taken a comprehensive, granular view of everything that you have going on, and that number's positive, I think that's healthy. You can make a strong case that that's healthy. Any positive number beyond a certain point. So, um, I'm sorry, that's probably no help to the question that you were actually asking. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure unless you really get into unless you open the books to somebody and they spend some time looking at it, you're not going to get an actual number as an answer to that question. Kirk, on getting big brands like Nike seems to be more related to how much you're selling than getting the correct documentation. That's why it seems that there is no rhyme or reason. It's because it's more about your history. Yes, to a certain degree, that is absolutely true. And Amazon even alludes to that in their documentation, depending on what we're talking about. Something like Nike, that was in the email that they sent out. Basically, that verbiage, just said in a little bit of a different way. They said that we, in an effort to uh, continue a great experience for our customers, blah, blah, blah. We are adding further restrictions to sellers' abilities to sell. And they phrased it like, we are trying to focus on people that have sold certain brands consistently and have stayed in stock. They actually made that point about in stock. It wasn't simply quantity, it was availability, which we know that's very important to Amazon. So yeah, so it's absolutely true, and Amazon admits that in certain cases. Now that's different. I think there's a bit of a difference as far as the whole regating thing, the thing that we're going through, because what I talked about at the top of the show, and Kirk, I know we've talked a little bit on Twitter. You saw, you responded to the tweet that I put last night. There are the planned regatings or added barriers, restrictions on stuff like Nike and Adidas happened a while ago. And then I think there's certain brands that weren't officially announced like that the same thing's happening essentially, right? Because now even as I'm starting to get auto approved on some stuff that I could sell and then couldn't sell, now can sell again, sometimes they're not all auto gates. I do still get that message asking for 100 or 300 or 400 units with the check boxes, that we were seeing on everything for a while. So, but that's part of my theory, that I think that they're adding extra levels and extra layers to the gating process. But and Kirk, this is no consolation to the new seller. It's kind of like when you first start looking for jobs and entry level jobs require experience only, and like when you first join the job world, it's like, okay, how do I get a job if every job requires experience? How does anybody who's looking for their first job get hired anywhere, right? It's kind of that same situation, but from Amazon's perspective, their number one focus is the customer, right? Customer ranks way higher than us, the sellers, right? So it makes sense that their default setting is going to be to favor the more seasoned sellers. They're going to favor the people that have sold Nike before, because you look at two sellers, and if one seller is in their first year and they're stocking 5 of each randomly in inconsistent intervals, if you compare that to a seller that has been around for 5 years and has 15 to 20 ASINs that they have sold hundreds of over the last several years, and stocks pretty consistently, and maybe we know the seller goes to the Nike outlet on a regular basis, or has a shopper go and check everything and has their list of replenishables, it makes sense that Amazon's going to favor that more experienced seller, right? And if they get to a point where they're like, it's just too many counterfeit Nikes, there's reputational risk. Customers are unhappy. The percentage of counterfeits on Nike products is getting too high, right? If that's one of the conversations that they have in their offices, which seller are they going to restrict first, right? It's the new seller. So sucks for the new seller. However, there is a path to getting approved. If Nike is important to you, and swap Nike out for whatever brand. This isn't just specific to Nike that I'm talking about. They've given us a path to get approved, even as a new seller. You can argue how realistic that number is, and it's going to be more realistic to some, and it's going to be out of reach for others, if it's 400 units or something like that. But if you've got a source, if you found a vein for consistent Nike supply, in the long run, 400 shouldn't be that big of a number. Like if 400 is too big because you just want a 5 and 10 a couple items because you go to the Nike outlet once every 2 months, well, you know, those trips are probably better served on some more consistent inventory. Maybe save those trips. Maybe if you don't bother, maybe you could do a little bit more RA and find something more profitable that you can turn more often. It'd be better for your business overall. So, but yeah, I feel you, Kirk. It is frustrating. Any other resources for KPF? Um, yeah, Jab. You know what? Go to Christopher Grant's Twitter. Pull up his history. He goes through bouts of just pumping Keepa tips on a regular off and on, but he'll go through swings where he's doing threads every single day on a different tactic here and there. Do that since you're on Twitter already. Go to cleartheshelf.com and look up his Keepa stuff, specifically the Keepa SOPs. SOP is standard operating procedure, right? So the Keepa SOPs are frameworks, numerous frameworks. I don't remember how many. I probably shouldn't even guess. I'm not sure what the total number is, but I feel safe saying dozens. It's dozens of different frameworks on how to find different stuff or different tactics of using Keepa Product Finder to find profitable inventory. It's slept on. And I don't even know how many people have bought it, but it is slept on because until Chris says, I can't believe how many people are buying these Keepa SOPs. That's the only point that I will be like, okay, this might have sufficient exposure by now because they are awesome. You can take my word for that. All right, so all right, see, and there's me late on the comments again. Chris is already jumping in there. He just, well, I guess I feel better. Yeah, and everything I just said, Jab, what I meant to say is what he just said. Sorry. That's funny. All right, now, Kirk, now you're gonna cause you're gonna start a fight with this stuff. I know rabbit holes, but rabbit trails. I don't know if Chris has it copyrighted, but there's both exist. They're both fully formed entities. That may have been true at some point, and if it was if somebody misspoke somewhere along the line and said trail instead of hole, it's a dirty joke there somewhere, but mind your business. That's all changed. If it was an error at first, it's just the way it is now. Hole and trail, two fully formed concepts now, regardless of origin. Carlos, what's up, man? I just started using TA. There's so many websites to choose from. How do you choose which to scan? Well, I have TA scans running all the time. More often than not, my maximum amount of scans are running. It used to be 4, but now with Seller 365, you can actually run 5 scans at a time. Here's the thing, Carlos. I haven't picked a specific store in probably at least a month. I know I ran iHerb. iHerb was running like a 20% site-wide sale, or at least a category sale or something like that. I know I took a category and I did a product search for iHerb, but that was about a month ago, and that was the last time that I chose a store. And if anyone's confused how that can be, that is because I am 100%, I'm 99.9% reverse search. I prefer reverse search over product search by a healthy margin. and it may just be the way I look at things. But I just think it's so much easier to take something on Amazon on the catalog that is selling, that you can verify the sales numbers up front, and you go, okay, I like this. These numbers look good. Let me try to find it profitably somewhere else. And you take a list of ASINs and you put it into tactical arbitrage, and then tactical arbitrage searches the 400, 500, I don't remember how many stores they're up to now. They will actually search their entire portfolio of stores that they're connected to and try to find it profitably for you. Um, so in that case, you can kind of be store agnostic, and just kind of let TA do the work and find stuff that looks good to you on the Amazon catalog. But I should give you some sort of answer to the original question instead of trying to, reorganize your strategy. How do you choose which store to scan? So the one thing to effectively use it, you do want to probably cast a larger net than most of the people, because the numbers of Walmart scans and Target scans and Walgreens scans, they're astronomical. The vast majority of the scans, everybody's doing that, right? And to be profitable, to have the best store that you possibly can, you need to be smart enough to kind of look in the darker corners, or follow the trails that have a little less traffic. So there are ways to randomize it. However, a really good way to do it would be to take something like SalesGazer, which SalesGazer is a free tool to where you can, it's basically, it's a free email inbox. And you can set whatever stores you want to monitor, and SalesGazer will collect promotional emails from the stores that you've chosen to monitor. And if you go to something like that, or, depending on what your promotions tab in Gmail looks like, or, whatever, however you sort your sales emails, find some stores that you like, whether it be because you have good luck with them often, or they run, their sales cycle, or, or whatever reason, but have your collection and use something like SalesGazer. Find sales, if an entire category goes on sale or something like that, kind of use the cues that their promotional emails give you to set your scans. And then just kind of, like I said, like iHerb, they put, I don't know, supplements on set. They like the entire supplement category is 20% off until X number date. So I was into it at the time. So I went into TA. I went to iHerb. I grabbed the supplements category. I dialed it up to 20% off, and then I ran it. So you can do that. Just constantly cycle through the stores that you like to source, but give some consideration to reverse sourcing too. So. All right, Jerry. Okay, so here's the follow up. Okay, so no issues in general, just emphasizing that the money is in the sourcing. Absolutely, that's where the money's made. You have over 2,500 ASINs right now, with 40% of those being replens. But I'm always looking for new profitable ASINs. Yeah, those numbers are fantastic, Jerry. 2,500 is massive, but I think the star of that sentence is 40% being replens. That makes the game so much easier, I'd imagine, Jerry. My number certainly isn't 40%. My replens, if it's not in the single digits, I would be shocked. So, yeah, but I'm constantly looking for new stuff. It's never been a bad idea, from my experience. Just constantly scouting for new products in different categories, and there's no drawback to it, so I keep doing it. Right? Yeah. There's some sort of bionics, like something's going on. Maybe he's got that neural chip or something. Maybe he's testing some stuff out, because that's processing power is envious or enviable. Jab. Okay. Yeah, you're selling for 2 months. Almost 10,000 in revenue on Walmart. Hey, that's great. So yeah, I mean that's a good start. So if you kind of keep that pace, um, yeah, we'll be coming to ask you questions in no time. Let's see. Pre-recorded. I'm stuttering and stammering. If this was pre-recorded, I would certainly put myself at a higher standard. I would not be as jumbled and all over the place as I am. Zapier automations. I do not. That's like, this might be, where another one of those things that if Corey was around, this might be a boomer thing on my part. But Zapier sounds awesome, but it's one of those things that I can't really figure out. So there is one. No, I'm sorry. There is one integration that I had nothing to do with, but I take advantage of when we do show notes. Like when Chris and I are comparing notes, we have a document that we both have access to. Right, it's just a Google sheet, right? So if one of us has an idea about something that we want to talk about, we'll enter it on this Google sheet, and he set up Zapier to automatically send us an email to let us know that there's a new entry. And is the coolest thing. I'm still like, he's always like, I don't know how this works, but this is awesome. So yeah, but that's the boomer in me. So, but the potential is, you know what, Miguel, you should probably, that's a good question for like Perplexity or Chat GPT. Grab that new O3 model, which I played around with a little bit, and it seems like it's awesome. First impression. And let them kick it around a little bit and tell you what opportunities there are to make yourself more efficient with Zapier automations. So that'd be a good task. What's up, Peyton? How do you know when it might be time to start using a prep center? That's a good question. Well, I mean, I think without getting into it depends, and the individuality of all of our situations, I think the basic correct answer is when prepping and shipping gets to the point that it takes away from you being profitable doing something else, right? If once you get to the point where prepping and shipping, actually you have to stop doing tasks that make you money to go get the prepping and shipping done, that now it's time to seriously consider it, right? Because if you weren't prepping and shipping, if instead of doing that you would be sourcing, well, sourcing makes you money. Prepping and shipping, that doesn't make you the money, right? That just connects you to the money that you're going to make. That just makes projected profit. It's a step towards making the projected profit real profit. But the profit was already there. You made the money when you sourced, So you basically want to, I think it's a good idea to kind of evaluate everything that you have to do, because there's a ton, like when you work for yourself, you do everything because everything's your responsibility. So I think it's smart to kind of set importance levels on these tasks, And the best way to do it would be to try to, even roughly, I'm not saying work up a sheet and have exact numbers and with decimal places and stuff, but basically get an idea of what the value of all of your tasks are, right? And if sourcing, it's like, man, sourcing, I can make $200 an hour if I source. Prepping and shipping, I technically make $0 an hour. So in that example that I talked about before, if you're doing a $0 an hour task that's keeping you from a $200 an hour task, it's time to outsource. So that's a pretty good way to look at it. So Jerry, yeah, you've been around since 2015, so that's you got me. Well, you got me doubled up, is what you do. So, well, that's good. So it sounds like you have a good system for your information too, which because I'm not sure how many. Well, no, I could. I've looked at ASINs from like my first year, but it's not something I regularly do. So you're doing good, man. 40% replens, man. That's a good system. So it looks like I am caught up on questions, right? So I'll give the last call for questions. It's a pretty big number. The audience, there's a lot of people. I really appreciate you guys showing up and sticking around. So yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of time to type any last questions. I always feel bad. It doesn't always seem like the last call for questions doesn't really give you enough time to type it out, And I think I've done that. Like people are wrapping it up. It's like, oh man, it's ending. I start typing and then they're signing off like right as you press enter. That's frustrating. So so we'll be back Wednesday. Wednesday shows at 5:30. We are going to have their fresh podcast episodes coming very, very soon. They're in post-production. And I know we talked about it Wednesday, but it's the truth. We're in a pretty good swing right now, as far as the people that are coming on, the people that we're talking to, and the subject of the podcast. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy the next several podcasts that are coming out. Jerry, yeah. Yeah, tomorrow night, if you're in the FBA Today Facebook group, that's the only place that I do it. I'm going live at 9 p.m. Eastern, and I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to sit there and source, and I'm going to share everything. You get to see how I do it. You get to see, you get a direct view of the tools that I use. I will think out loud and share what I'm thinking as I go through stuff, like why I'm moving past something or why I'm digging further on something. Yeah. So I'll spill it and you'll see exactly how I do what I do. And you can take the ASINs that I find and rabbit trail off of those or all sorts of stuff. Man, you could have let that go. I mean, you could have just let it be post-production. You didn't have to throw yourself under the bus. But that's all right. All right. So yeah, if you're in FBA today, show up on Monday night or tomorrow night, 9 p.m. We'll find every single week. Man, it was kind of story time last Monday. We kind of went on some tangents and it was fun. It was one of the better shows, but as far as like volume of products found, I think I only found 2 over at least 90 minutes. I don't know if I think it was about 90 minutes. I only found 2 products, but like the day before or the week before that was 6 leads and $293 in projected profit just in a 90-minute period. The week before that was 5 products and $288. if you bought 5 of each. That's how I calculate that projected profit number. But I mean, it's $200 an hour, you know, um, that I'm sharing with you. So if that's appealing to you, join FBA today if you're not in there already. If you are in there, look under the events tab. You'll see tomorrow night's is already set up. The event has been posted. So check it out. Come say hi. And yep, Miguel, that's what I'm talking about. We'll be going live tomorrow 9 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, so if I don't see you tomorrow night in FBA today, I'll hopefully see you Wednesday. Me and Chris will be back for our Wednesday live news and Q&A show. And I appreciate it, Jerry. I really do. All right, so enjoy the last of your Sunday, whether you're finishing up your work weekend or getting ready to start your work week tomorrow. I hope you kick a bunch of ass. Don't eat too much candy. Oh, we didn't do a joke. So I did hear this joke. I'm pretty sure it's not offensive. That's probably an indication I shouldn't tell the joke. But so I heard this joke and it said, how do trans serial killers murder their victims? They/them. That can't be offensive, but that's fine. I love that joke. All right, I'm out. Talk to you soon.